Hello there and welcome to Beads Jar. I'm Natalia and today I am going to be showing you how to make this asymmetric necklace, which uses a variety of different seed beads in styles, sizes, shapes and colours, and Swarovski pearls too. If you want to make a style statement over the holidays and beyond, then this is a very fun and glamorous way to do it. So this video I'm going to be taking you through all those steps to show you how to complete this beautiful piece. So here are all of the components that you're going to need to make our Glitz and Glamour Asymmetric necklace. First of all, you're going to need one of these disc connectors. This is 22mm. And 3 of these silver coloured washer rings, 14mm. We're going to use some of these Swarovski pearls, and these are 3mm, they are a white colour. And then we have all our seed beads. So first of all, we've got some Miyuki Delica, and these are in palladium, a beautiful glittery silver colour, and they are 11/0s. Then we have some 8/0 galvanized silver Miyuki seed beads. We have some white crystal AB Miyuki beads, and these are 11/0s too. We have some red Miyuki seed beads in 11/0. And then some more delicas. So this one is crystal AB, and they are 11/0s. So those are delicas. And we have some 10. Size 10 delica, and these are red orange Miyuki. Look at that, really festive colors. You're going to need lots of fire line, so I'm using crystal colors. This is this white color, and this is £6. And then for the necklace part of our piece, we're going to use some of these transparent glass beads. I'm using the red ones here. These are 6mm rounds, and the transparent clear 6mm rounds. I'll tell you exactly how many I've used in the show more box down below, so do open that up and have a look at that information, because it gives you all the links to our website and the different codes for the products if you want to order any of these or have a look at them. You're going to need 2 of these hexagonal silver beads. We've got 2 crimps to finish our necklace off, and then finally a magnetic clasp, so it makes it nice and secure and easy to slip on and off. And then in terms of tools, I've got flat nose pliers, and I've also got some wire cutters, or you can use scissors to cut your fire line. And finally, most importantly, we've got some size 10 beading needle. Okay, so let's get started on the project. So the first part of our necklace is to create the component that is the largest ring, the largest circle in the asymmetric pattern. And I'm using this disc ring connector to create a circular brick stitch around it. This is 22mm. Now you'll see it's a little bit bumpy. It's not completely and utterly smooth, but that doesn't matter because we're going to be covering it and surrounding it with seed beads and then putting a coverage of seed beads over the top. So I've taken a length of fire line. I've got about 1/2 meter on my size 10 needle, because I want to have plenty of thread to do as much as I can around this component. I'm going to put a stop bead on the end of my thread, so I'm just popping that on. And you want to leave yourself a really decent length of tail on the end of here. So the reason for that is you want to be able to sew it through at the end. So to secure that in place, I'm just going to tie a knot. And then that's my stop bead is nicely securely placed in there. Okay, and then the first line, or the first sort of row of the pattern, is going to consist of these crystal AB delicas, so they are size 11s. I'm going to get myself a few of those onto my beading mat there. These are so beautiful, they look like snowflakes. Okay, so take my connector And I'm just taking my needle underneath. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to grab a bead actually and thread it on first of all. So placing one of the delicas onto there. And take my needle underneath the component like that. Now, if you hold your thumb in place, you just want to hold that seed bead there and then take your needle up through the delica. So I'm just going to take that needle there, and that's going to secure my delica in place. And this is where we're starting the brick stitch. Now with brick stitch, so we're going around in a circle. You can go either clockwise or anti-clockwise. For some reason, I just really like to go in an anti-clockwise direction. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's whatever you prefer. So this is the direction I'm going to go in. And I'm just going to show you the first few in this first row. So I'm taking another delica. Just get my stop bead and my thread out of the way. So taking my needle underneath the component, pulling the thread up. You've got quite a lot of thread here, so you're going to have to be very mindful of that. So just taking my bead up, hold it in place there. The first couple are the ones that are a little bit pesky, and then once we get going, it sorts itself out. So take my needle back up through that last delica that I placed on there, and then pull it through. So if I just show you what's happening there, you will see that the two delicas are standing upwards and you've got two lines of thread going down. And what you're doing is you're just going to carry on going around the component until you get lots of different delicas all the way around. I'll just do one more for you before I go and allow you to go and finish that off, that first row. So taking the thread down through that delica, taking my needle back up through the delica. This is a little bit more awkward for me because I'm on camera showing you how to do this. And then just pulling that straight. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that they're basically evenly spaced. So every so often just keep pushing them up together. So that is the pattern that you'll do all the way around. So meet me back here again when you've created your first row, and then I'll show you how to go on to do the next part of this pattern. Right, so we're virtually back to our stop bead there, and you'll notice that there's a little gap. I've just got my threads there nearly meeting up with one another. So this is the point at which you would judge, do I insert another bead here in that gap? Is it big enough? Or should I just push everything along and accommodate the gap with what I already have? So you have to make that judgment. Personally, I don't think that there's room for another bead because they might start to all get bunched up on top of one another. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take, you can see that my thread is coming out of the last delica, the top, and I'm just going to take it back down through the very first delica that I inserted onto the piece, taking that down, and what it does is it pulls everything together, and you can just use your nails. As you can see, mine are a little bit chipped because I've been doing that, but you can just do your nails just to push everything along and close up any gaps. So you can see we didn't need another bead in there at all. So I'm going to take my thread underneath through my component, go around there, and then I want to just take it up through that very first delica that I inserted into the component. So we're at our starting point of where we began, And we are now ready to commence our second row. So if you get a gap for me, you can just pull your stop bead thread just to make sure everything's all lined up beautifully. So now we're going to put our second row on, and let me just bring in the finished component. So you'll see I began with these AB beads, and then I'm going to add a row of the red orange ones. Well, there's actually 2 rows there. So let me bring my red orange seed beads in just to add a splash of colour. And I'm just going to pick one of those beads up, and what you will see is we have a thread going across each of these beads. It's called the thread bridge. So I'm just going to take my needle underneath the first thread bridge, and I've got the delica on the end of my needle. So I'm going to pull it across, again holding it in place with my finger, and then I'm going to take my needle back up through that red delica, and that will enable it to stand up straight, standing up to attention there. It's a lot easier to see, isn't it, when we've got the red ones. We take our second bead, and then we're going to go through the thread bridge that is next to the first bead that we put on. So take your needle through there, take your thread all the way through, and then pass the needle back up through your red delica, and then it will stand up straight. So just do one more and show you that again. So we've got the next thread bridge there, taking my needle underneath it, and it gets easier, you know, as the more of the beads that get laid down, the easier it gets. You see that they're going to all sit uniformly on top. Now these are just slightly bigger than the first row that we created, so there will come a point where you have to judge. I take one of my beads that sometimes you will be going underneath the bead for the thread bridge. At the moment it's okay, but when it gets to the point where the thread bridge is too far along, then go to the next one. Okay, so we're going to continue doing these all the way around again, and if I bring my component back over, what you'll see in terms of the pattern is that we've got 2 rows of those, and then we have our larger beads, which are the size 11 white crystal beads. So we have a row of those then, and so basically you can create whatever pattern you like. This is a suggested pattern, so I've done 1 row of the Miyukis, which are the size, oh, I'm just checking the size of them, sorry, those reds were a size 10, so those are size 11. I've got 2 rows of the size 10 red delicas, and then I've got 1 row of the size 11 white beads. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we would finish the pattern using one of the other components. So I'm using Swarovski pearls here, and I'm using some of those red size 11 Miyuki beads. So in this part I'm going to show you how we add this little embellishment where they're almost like little points that are coming out the top of it, just to give it a radiant quality, this component. So I'm going to show you on one of the smaller components that I've already completed. Now the process that I showed you with the large washer, with the large disc ring connector, you're going to be creating 3 more of these using your own pattern. I'll show you how I've done that a little bit later on, but it's exactly the same process, just the washer that we're starting with is this silver coloured washer with the writing on it, and it's a little bit smaller. So here's one that I've done, and on this particular design, instead of using the Swarovski pearls, I've used Swarovski pearls and size 11 red Miyukis to do that kind of radiation outline there. And here I'm using size 8 silver Miyuki and size 11 red Miyukis. So let's get started. I've got the thread coming out of the top of one of the delicas there. So I'm going to load my needle up with one of the size 11 reds, the size 8 silver, and another size 11 red. And I'm going to just take my needle underneath the thread bridge, the next one along. Okay, so just pull it tight, and you'll see you get that little spread of beads. I'm going to take my needle up through the last red one, pull it tight, and then we have them all standing up like that, but with the silver one standing prouder than the others. Because we've already got a red now, what we need is we just need a silver and a red. Take that under the next thread bridge, just making sure that I'm going under the right one, and just pull that tight, and then take my needle up through that last red bead that I placed there. My hands are, the reason why I'm slipping around with the needle is because my hands are a little bit sweaty being in the studio and the warm lights. Okay, and so that's exactly what you'll do all the way around. So you're going to take another silver and then a red, and just keep going around the thread bridge like that, and it creates this beautiful pattern there that just gives a little bit of an edge to the circular piece. Okay, and it ends up looking very similar to that, which was the original piece that we did. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this component, and there's one last thing I want to do on this one. Because I'm using this disc ring that is a slightly uneven, I didn't want that to be seen on the front of the necklace. So what I've done is I've added some seed beads around the center, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. So I've got some thread left here, and I'm going to do this on the underside so you can see how I actually added them in. So I've got some size 11s here, the Miyuki seed beads. I'm just going to thread pop my needle onto the thread, and then I'm going to see I'm coming out of one of the beads in the second row. So I'm just going to take my thread with my needle down into the center, just passing my needle through some of the beads to get it down there. So this is a little bit of a hard task sometimes, because the beads are quite tight. So if you need help, you can use your pliers to take the needle through. And I'm just going to get it to come out in the center. So I'm going to take my thread through the back, and then come up in the middle. So here I am ready to start adding beads to this component around the center. So I'm going to take my thread underneath one of these lines of thread there, right? And then I'm going to pour myself out some of these red Miyuki. I'm just going to take a Miyuki bead and then pass my needle under the next thread. And then take my needle back through the bead so that it sits straight. Take another Miyuki and go through the next thread along. And so they should be really evenly spaced, because that's how we did this right at the start. And it enables us to add this lovely extra little row in there. And so take my needle back up through the center of that bead. And then those beads will sit nicely around the center of that component. So you'll finish that until you get to the other side, and then you will have your piece all finished. And let me bring in the other pieces that I've created now. So I've left all of the threads on these. It's important to say that, because you'll want to use those to sew the pieces together. And so we've got these two, and then this one, and then we've also got this other one that I'm still adding those beads to. So I'm going to finish the line of beads around the outside of this one. I'm going to show you how you would actually put them all together and sew them together. So we started off showing you how to create this largest component using the disc ring connector, and then it's exactly the same process. We used these little washer rings for the smaller ones, and didn't cover up the center because they're so pretty and they're very perfectly round, so I've kept those as like a design feature, and particularly if you have the writing side facing upwards, it just gives this nice nice little design feature. So you can see what I've done here is I've used different patterns. So I've used my AB delicas. I've done 2 rows of AB delicas, and then I've used these palladium delicas as the 3rd row, and then I did my little radiant star effect there. So I used some size 8 silver seed beads, Miyuki seed beads, and the little beads in between are the size 11 white ones. So that one's all sort of silver and white. And my second component is just started off with my first row is size 11 delicas in palladium, and then 2 rows of the size 10 red ones, and then I've just added Swarovski pearls. I've just dotted those around the edge, and so what I did was I just skipped a thread bridge and then added another bead and then skipped a thread bridge, and so that's how that one's made up. And then I showed you how to do that one. So we've got a row of palladium, red, some white ones or AB delicas, and then the finishing off with that lovely effect around the outside. So 4 pieces all together, and what I'm going to do now is just show you how to put them all together. So you decide how you want them. This is an asymmetric design. So asymmetric means that it isn't symmetrical, it's not consistent. And this gives it a very unique look. And so the first thing I'd advise you to do before you start sewing them up together, we've kept all of the threads. So any threads that were left over, you make sure that your thread comes out in the outer edge, last row of beads, and then just position the pieces and see how you want them working. They're almost like little cogs on a mechanism, aren't they? They look quite interesting. And so when we have these little last row of beads, it creates these interconnecting parts for them to be sewn together with. So that is how I'd like my necklace to look, where I want it to just kind of slot together like that. And so I'm going to start sewing the components together. So I'm just going to move those two away and we'll start with these two. And so I've got my needle already on this thread here. So I need to take my thread all the way along to get to here. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to pass through the beads to get myself to this position. So meet me back here once I've done that. So I'm going to sew these two together. And what I want to do is just to nestle those beads in between the Swarovski pearl, because I think that will make a really nice connection. So I'm going to take my needle through that first silver bead and then down through the white one, just to give it a bit of anchorage there. And then up through the silver one. Just pull those together. And then it wants to go through the Swarovski pearl there. And then back down through that silver bead and the white one. So we're just going to do that a few times because we want this to be as solid as possible, a connection. We don't want the pieces to flop around. Let's back up through that silver bead. And then what I might do is just take it through the red one. Back through that pearl there, which is the main connecting piece, and then back around. So you can do that as many times as you like, but what it does is it just creates a really nice solid connection for those two components, and that is exactly what you're going to do as you connect the other pieces together too. Just going to go back through that silver one. And go down through the red one. Through my pearl again. Till you feel confident that you've got those connected as well as you possibly can. You've got plenty of thread to do that because we left those threads there at the end. Now I just want to show you how to finish off. So when we're ready to disconnect the thread, or to cut the thread off, should I say. It's going to take it through that silver one. And down through the red one. Just going to take it to the back of the piece. Take my needle underneath. And then I want to go through a couple of those white beads there. And as I go through that white bead, you can see I've got my loop of my thread. I'm just going to take my needle underneath it and tie a knot. And then I'm going to go through the next white bead along and do the same thing. Just slip my thread through the loop and tie another knot. Just be careful because there's lots of threads everywhere and they just do get hooked into those little jutting out beads there. I'm going to take it back through that white one. I'm going to do one more loop, so you can't be too careful and cautious in finishing when you're getting rid of your thread. And when I'm satisfied that I've done enough there, I'm just going to snip that thread off. Okay. So I'm going to take my piece back up, and my next piece is going to go there. Let me just get myself assembled. Yeah, I like that. So I'm then going to do the same process. I've got my thread coming out here. This is the thread that I had left over. And I'm going to pop a needle on there and sew those two pieces together and do the same with that one. So I will see you again once I've connected all of those together, and we will start to look at how we can then begin to add the necklace part that you're going to be able to hang your centerpiece from. So this is the piece all sewn together, and you can see it's beautifully asymmetric. That's just the look that we're going for. And now we need to add the stringing part of the necklace, so what it's going to be suspended from. And this is the pattern that we're using. So we've got these clear glass beads, the red ones, and then some of these size 8 Miyuki silver beads, and also one of the hexagonal beads. So I'm going to start afresh and show you how that's going to be done. Let me just take the pendant part of it away. So I have threaded on some fire line onto a needle, and you're going to need about 1/2 meter of fire line. And we're going to begin with the clasp part of our stringing part of the necklace. So this is a magnetic clasp. It comes in 2 halves. Oops, it's very, very keen. So we're just going to slide one of those halves off, and I'm going to take my thread through the little loop at the top of that clasp. So take it through, and just leaving a tail of about 6-7 centimeters. So I just threaded a crimp onto the thread. So we're going to leave a bit of a tail of the thread, about 7 centimeters. And then you're going to take your needle through that little loop at the top of the clasp, thread that through. And then I'm going to take my needle back through the crimp. You can see how the metallic clasp is sticking to my needle. So I'm just going to pull that through there like that. And then take my chain nose pliers, grab my crimp, and just, the clasp wants to attach itself to my pliers, so I'm just leaving a couple of millimeters so that the thread can move in that little loop there. And then I'm going to just press the crimp together with my pliers. Just press it really, really tightly. You can pop a crimp cover over the crimp if you so wish. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And we're going to start to thread our beads on. So the first part of our design is a couple of my Swarovski pearls. So it's nice to bring those in because they are part of the design. So I'm going to add a Swarovski pearl onto the end of there. And then I'm going to take one of the clear glass beads and another Swarovski pearl. Just pop that on there. We'll deal with the tail later once I put the crimp cover on when I finish my project. Okay, and so then the next thing is we need these little size 8 silver beads. So I'm going to pick up 4 of those onto your needle. So taking 4 and then take those all the way up to the Swarovski pearl. And then I'm just going to take my needle, because we're almost going to create like a little circle with these beads. So I'm going to take my needle and take it back through those, all of those beads, and just hold them in place and pull. So we need to make sure it goes all the way back up to the top of the pearl. And if you adjust those, you'll get like this little, almost like a little diamond shape happening, or a little square. And we want to make sure that our thread comes out at the base of those. So I'm just going to take my, just grab that again, take my thread back through those and down into the last bead at the bottom. So it sits like a perfect little diamond shape on there, or like a little flower almost. So your thread is coming out of the bottom of that bead, and then you're ready to put your next beads on. So we're going to take a red bead, and a Swarovski pearl. Let's get some more of those here. So we've got a really nice combination of pulling in some of the different beads and pearls from the design into the necklace part of it. And then another red one. I'm going to create another of those little diamond shapes. So 4 of the beads onto your thread. And then come back through all of them, pull them together, and then take your needle back around through them all. So you're just going to carry on doing this, creating these combinations. Alright, okay, until we get to the length, the kind of length that you need. Now it's up to you how long you want your necklace part of your design to be. If you want it to sit really high up like a choker, or if you want to have it as a longer piece. I've got mine more or less sort of sitting in the main chest area, you know, below the collarbone. That I like my necklaces to be a bit longer, sort of 20-inch length. So that's given me a combination of 4 of the red, oh sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the red sets, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the clear. Okay, and then I've just finished my design. Finished my design with this hexagonal shaped bead on the end there. Just adds a nice bit of interest near the edge of the piece, because this is quite bulky, and so we want something a little bit more chunky and masterful to come and meet it here. And then I've added my little 4 sort of square piece there on the end. So when you have your required length that you need for your necklace, you're now ready to attach it to the pendant. Alright, so let's start figuring out how to attach this to the pendant. So I feel like I would like my necklace part to come in here in between those 2 pearls. Maybe a little bit higher up. No, I think I want it there. So I've still got my thread coming out of the end of my necklace. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it into the red bead in between those two pearls. So I'm just going to pull that through. I'm going to go down into the white bead underneath. So we really want to get a very secure connection going on here. So those sit beautifully in between those two pearls. I'm going to take my needle through the other side so that we don't see any thread on this side. And then I'm just going to take it up through the white bead here. Don't you find thread is the most challenging part of doing seed beading? It just wants to attach itself to everything. And then I'm going to go up through that red bead. I'm going to take my thread back through the silver bead there and find the hole. There it is. And then take it into the pearl alongside there. So it's just really making sure that we are getting a connection not just on the end and those beads that are on either side of the necklace part, but really taking it into the rest of the necklace and giving it a very, very strong connection. I might take it down into that red one there and just pulling my thread. Okay, and so when you're happy that you've connected this as securely as you possibly can, I'm just going to secure this with a knot. So take your needle partially way through, pass it underneath the loop that's created with the thread, and then pull it. So that's tying a knot. We're going to go along and do that on the bead next to it. So come through one of the red delicas, just pulling your needle through, take it through the loop that you've created there with the thread and pull it tight, and you've got another knot there. And one more for luck. Just going to go a little bit further up here to that AB coloured bead. And then I'm ready to snip that thread off. And there we are. So we have our necklace connected to the pendant part, and all you'll do is just repeat that process to connect the other side of your necklace component to your pendant, and that will give you your completed necklace. And here's what the finished piece looks like. Doesn't it look amazing? And you really can see how well all these components go together, and the way that the bits and pieces and the colours all flow through from the pendant through to the necklace there. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'd love to see what you come up with in terms of your own design ideas, and I hope this acts as an inspiration, and that you create your own colours, textures and beads to do your own asymmetric necklace. So I hope you've enjoyed our tutorial today. If you have, please make sure that you like this video, that you also comment and share anything that you've enjoyed about it, any improvements that we can make. And most of all, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any future tutorials. There are all of the components that you need to make this necklace are in the show more section, so just click on that box below and we look forward to welcoming you back again for more wonderful tutorials. Bye for now.